One of Britain's most outstanding leading men of yesteryear was Dirk Bogarde. Bogarde was of Flemish and Scottish descent and became one of Britain's great actors. Join Facts First UK to learn about how Dirk Bogarde had a dangerous side that cameras didn't capture. Sir Dirk Bogarde was born as Derek Jules Gaspard Ulrich Niven van den Bogarde, so you can see why he chose the stage name Dirk Bogarde when he entered the film industry. His father was Flemish and his mother Scottish, and he was born in West Hampstead, London on March 28, 1921. His childhood wasn't the easiest as he had to move houses several times. When his London house became crowded, he moved to Glasgow to live with his mother's relatives. He then returned back to London in 1937 when he was 16. While in Scotland, he studied at University College School and reflected that his time in school wasn't his happiest. He eventually studied at the Royal College of Arts and also found a part-time job during this time, working backstage serving tea to the cast and crew members. This was his first exposure to the world of acting, and he eventually received a role as a stand-in in one local production. This experience changed him. He loved being on stage and decided he wanted to pursue a career as an actor. This wasn't completely out of scope for him as his mother was a former actress in Scotland, so perhaps her interest in the arts rubbed off on young Dirk. In 1939, he landed his first small role in the comedy film Come On George, starring George Formby. The role was uncredited, but enough to get him on track to becoming an actor and eventually a star. Dirk's career. In 1939, he also landed his first major role in a stage play. He appeared in the play Cornelius by J.B. Priestley. At the time, he was known as Derek Bogarde, and after this play ended, he took a hiatus from his acting career to fight in the Second World War. Upon his return, he decided to return to his short-lived acting career. While he was still an amateur, he was already catching the eye of prominent British film producers. He was eventually recruited into the Rank organization. This was one of the biggest entertainment companies in the country and run by showbiz mogul J. Arthur Rank. Dirk's handsome looks and charm were noticed, and the company wanted to help him work towards becoming a successful actor and major star. Many of its earliest films were produced by the famous Betty Box, who was instrumental in transforming young Dirk into one of Britain's biggest stars. His first credited role was in the film Esther Waters, released in 1948. He was still an amateur, but had a lead role alongside Kathleen Ryan. He also wasn't afraid to try out different types of roles, and he was a leading man who also took on interesting characters. One of his early fascinating films was a film noir called So Long at the Fair. He had a lead role alongside Jean Simmons, and he rescues her from danger. In 1952, he appeared in another film noir, now considered one of his masterpieces. This was called Hunted and was known as The Stranger in Between when it was released in the USA. In the film, he plays a man on the run after committing a murder. During the film, he comes across a runaway child and cares for him, albeit begrudgingly. This was a complex film and remains one of his best-known and most acclaimed performances. In 1953, he acted in the film Desperate Moment. In this chilling film, he played a man wrongfully imprisoned and desperately trying to clear his name and find hope. It was a dramatic and touching film for the time and unusual for most leading men of that era. In 1955, he had a lead role in the film Simba. It was set in Africa and followed a British family who became the target of the Mau Mau uprising. They had to fight to protect themselves and other Africans against the Mau Maus. This was another film that showed his tremendous range and his desire to not only be the handsome heartthrob, but also to take on challenging roles, with often controversial stories behind them. He wasn't afraid to take on dark roles as well. The same year, he acted in the film Cast a Dark Shadow. In this unusual and frightening film, he played a man who romanced women and then murdered them. While such roles aren't particularly unusual today, this wasn't expected for the rather conservative 1950s. One must also remember this was years before the film Peeping Tom, and in that film, the protagonist wasn't quite the heartthrob. Dirk somehow managed to maintain heartthrob status even when he played such a despicable character. While Dirk mostly focused on British films, he also had a significant career in Europe and America as well. A mention should be made of some of his best films in various countries in Europe, as well as the American films he did. One of his most well-known American films was Justine, released in 1969. In the film, he played Purse Warden, who helps Justine, played by Anouk Amy, to help fund the Jewish underground movement in the territory of British-mandated Palestine. This was a period piece and slightly controversial due to its political content. Nevertheless, Dirk was never afraid to take on political roles and managed to keep his stardom even when he experimented with riskier films. He also appeared in a 1971 Italian film called Death in Venice, directed by Luchino Visconti. In this film, he played composer Gustav van Aschenbach, who tries to find respite in Italy. He reaches Italy when a cholera pandemic breaks out. This was a challenging film and is perhaps only known to the most die-hard Dirk Bogarde fans, but it's also likely one of his best performances. He was also lauded for his performance in the controversial film The Night Porter, which followed the relationship between a former prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp and a former Nazi commander with whom she fell in love. Even now, this sounds like one of the most difficult and uncomfortable films to watch. His final film role was a French film called Daddy Nostalgia. It was a fitting final film and was a huge hit, and it's still considered one of his best performances. In the film, rather than being the leading man, he plays the father of the leading lady. A fitting way to end a successful career in cinema that lasted for almost 6 decades. Dirk had a dangerous side that cameras didn't capture. Dirk often did films with Ava Gardner, whom he considered to be one of his closest friends and who the tabloids often considered a potential couple. But Dirk had a side perhaps he could have been more open about today, but couldn't when he was growing up and when he was rising up in his career. He was great friends with fellow English actor Anthony Forwood, and it was often speculated that the two were in love, though Dirk often stated their relationship didn't have a romantic element. For much of Dirk's early life and career, homosexual acts were still criminalized in the UK. Being open about his possible homosexuality would have landed him in prison and certainly would have ruined his career. While these laws were repealed in the late 60s, it was still taboo for any actor to be open about their homosexuality. Other actors like Sir John Gielgud and Sir Ian McKellen had to struggle and fight due to their homosexuality. Perhaps these struggles dictated his career and made him choose dangerous roles, such as in Simba and The Night Porter. Most leading stars, even today, want to remain as friendly as possible, but don't want to do anything but stay the course. That's why Sir Dirk Bogarde was special. He stood out from other leading men because he didn't fear taking challenging roles in challenging films. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Dirk Bogarde is still considered one of Britain's finest actors? Let us know in the comments section below.